The other big piece that I think it's a win, not an if, is the integration of AI.
Yes.
AI can do a lot of things for us, but again, we are incumbent to individualize our treatments and not to have AI write it for us. So, first of all, your prediction of Georgia Ole Miss.
Yes.
I'm gonna go.
Be honest now. Be honest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Beyond the Science, we are live here in Arizona ABA conference.
Yes.
How everybody feeling right now?
Good.
I'm trying to get adjusted to this time change, guys.
Time change.
I'm an EST guy. What is this, PST?
Yeah.
This is PST. This is a little bit different.
I think it's giving him PTSD.
It is.
As for our listeners, we had our bag loss last night. Got it back at the end, changed time zones. So anyway, we appreciate y'all joining us back here. We have a special guest with us here. Adam Hahs is a Chief Science Officer with Hope Bridge. Let's quickly join him. Welcome to the show, fellas.
Awesome.
I just want to give you a shout out before we start. I'm always giving Hope Bridge the credit and the shout out on the podcast, the TikTok, and it's kind of a nostalgic moment for me because I started out with you guys, and that's kind of how I got my foundation. So thank you for definitely taking the time out today and joining the podcast with us.
Yeah, happy to be here, guys.
Yeah, so Adam actually just finished doing a presentation, so we have to thank him for coming on because when we were doing the last one, all the commotion that you guys heard on the last one was actually Adam's. People are leaving the presentation to go hear him in the big one. So that's awesome. So I know you just did a presentation where you discussed clinical resilience and self-compassion using ACT. Now that your session's over, let us know how your presentation was, and then just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, Adam Hahs, as you mentioned, Chief Science Officer at Hope Bridge. Been a BCBA for, 16 years. So got my BCBA in 2008. Finished my doctorate in 2013. Yeah, the talk, that one's always a tricky one to navigate. It's pretty heavy, but the work that we do is heavy. And I think one of the offerings that I was hoping that got across was the idea that we need to take care of ourselves too, so that we can be the best versions of ourselves when we go and work with so many families. And so as much as it was didactic in my kind of talking and teaching, it was also experiential. And for ACT, Acceptance Commitment Therapy, it is highly experiential. We want to walk with people arm in arm through exercises rather than me on high talking down to people. It's rather that we're working together about how to take care of ourselves, show some clinical resilience, show self-compassion. And in doing so, we're better clinicians for it.
Yes,
absolutely. And just for our listeners who may not know a little bit about ACT, can you just give us a quick cliff notes about what ACT is?
Yeah, so ACT is, in a nutshell, it's a way to kind of navigate challenging and appetitive kind of reinforcing situations in a way that we don't get too stuck in rule-governed behavior, to adhere to specific thoughts, feelings, and emotions. Historically, the mentality has been that we should avoid and suppress and eliminate bad thoughts, feelings, and emotions. ACT takes the stance of one of receptivity, of accepting those emotions, of accepting thoughts and feelings, and thinking of ways that we can engage in psychological flexibility or adaptive patterns of behavior that ultimately are in line with our values or what we care about in life.
Yeah, and I know, so a lot of people are doing presentations on ACT now, and I know I heard a good one at but actually a couple months ago, so I appreciate you continuing to share the knowledge with that. With Hope Bridge, I want to segue back to Hope Bridge. Could you talk to us a little bit about what the organization is doing, any initiatives you guys have going on as an organization that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, so Hope Bridge founded in 2005 by an occupational therapist. And she saw around the corner of what many of us didn't, in that the impact of ABA would have for so many families. Started in Kokomo, Indiana, a little small mom and pop shop. And now we have over, almost 115 centers in about 12 states.
Ooh, that's not enough of that, man. That's big.
So part of that vision came from Kim Strunk, and now we've blossomed to 5,000 employees, and we serve over 3,000 families. So we're pretty excited about the work that we get to do for so many families. Everything is ascent and compassion forward that we impart. That's our philosophy.
Yes.
That's what we want to be about. My efforts at Hope Bridge are around clinical outcomes and that research. But I also head up our fieldwork training, our fellowship program that we'll probably talk about in a bit if you want.
Yeah.
And I want to give a shout out to Kim, because I remember when I had first started and she would do her rounds and still come to the clinics. And I feel like, there is a disconnect sometimes when you do build a company. You get to a certain level where you do never see the CEOs, you never see the owners. And the fact that was something that she made important to still kind of come and be connected, I really appreciate that. Started my ABA career.
Yeah, still does it, Cooper. I mean, she goes to centers, every other week probably. She was in North Carolina this week. So she is really a great leader and embodies kind of what she hopes for in the people we get to work with and hire.
That's leadership. Sticking with leadership, because I know some of our listeners, they ask these questions all the time, and we have a phenomenal leader here. What advice would you give for aspiring leaders who are trying to find their voice, to trying to find their leadership style? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think there are a couple characteristics of who I would envision and I think embody good leadership. Being humble is number one. Number two is being okay with resistance or pushback to your own ideals. I'm not always right, and I don't envision a world where that is ever going to be the case. Creating a context where pushback is healthy, where you can have disagreements, and the best ideas should win, not based on title, but based on what it can do for the organization and for the people we get to work with.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna spin it back to, because we were talking a little off air a little bit about this amazing fellowship.
Yeah.
And I remember my experience of being an educator, stepping into the field and not really having opportunities to really engage and truly learn because I was in the classroom. Yeah. So you guys have an amazing thing going on there at Hope Bridge. Can you explain that to the viewers and just let them know?
Yeah, so the fellowship program came, its genesis was in that very sentiment of there's a gap in the experiences that our learners have. So people getting fieldwork experience have come from all walks of life and with different backgrounds, and some high quality, some really poor quality examples of good leadership and good mentorship and practicum experience. We wanted to kind of level set and take that out of a variable and be able to curate our own curriculum that we push, BCBAs in training or individuals who are in graduate training to this space where the curriculum drives the experience, and we provide an offering or a systemic level of experience that each of those students would get. And so what started, in a couple dozen individuals getting their experience through the fellowship program, we now have over 200 students who are mentored by senior BCBAs. So we're pretty excited about what that yields. In terms of pass rate, I mean, a lot of people orient to pass rate as being indicative of a good graduate training program. We all know the data's out there. The pass rate for the BCBA exam is 56%.
That's the first time. That's the first
That's
time.
the first time.
What happens on the second time, Adam?
Gets cut in half. So those who take it second, third, fourth, etc., that number drops drastically. What we wanted to do at Hope Bridge was see to what extent our curriculum and wraparound experiences have in service of kind of increasing that pass rate. And in those analyses, you can kind of confidently land on about 80% pass rate.
Yes. And the quote JC, what he say? Men lie, women lie, but numbers don't.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So you being real humble, but that is amazing. We just speak off camera, but that's amazing that you guys are doing that, and the fact that you guys are at the level but still caring about what's going on for people still coming up is amazing to the field, and we truly appreciate that.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the person who really really is the engine of it, Candace McGuire. She runs the show at Fellowship. I fortunately get to work with her, but she's architected this beautiful curriculum that every fellow goes through. And she's just been the real tip of the spear for that progress and work we were able to do.
That's amazing.
Shout out to her.
Thank you, Candace. That's amazing. So I want to quickly shift back to your presentation. And we were talking about ACT. Just wanted to know, did anybody in your question-wise have any questions about how ACT was implemented sort of in clinical practice and any challenges that anybody was having doing your presentation?
Yeah, I think it's always kind of a questionable move to introduce experiential exercises into
That's where I was going.
a talk. Part of me is the juice is worth the squeeze. I think that the benefit in terms of how many people might benefit from the experience outweighs the potential negatively perceived use of it in a space like that. I think it's shows a space of kind of being willing to go there, and those who are willing to go there get something out of it on the back end in ways that they probably hadn't experienced previously from just reading a book about ACT or about relational frame theory. ACT is very experiential heavy and very intentionally so. To experience it gives you the tools then to maybe go and use it with others. So
you're listening to Beyond the Science. We're live here with Adam Hahs at the Arizona ABA conference. I'm going to shift a little bit. Usually halfway through our interviews, we do our off the clock segment. We call it Beyond the Science because we go beyond the field of ABA. So Coop, I'm going to turn it over to you for our off the clock segment.
So yes, this is Behind the Science where we switch gears a little bit. And I want to say, Adam, you are extremely humble. You are amazing. What you're doing for the field is amazing. I want to talk about you being a professor. I'm not sure a lot of people are aware of that. And I want to talk about implementing that BCBA stuff and behavior stuff with being a professor.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've had an interesting trajectory in terms of my clinical practice. Went to school at Ole Miss and learned from Dr. Kelly Wilson. I know, man. It's tough. It's tough to hear. But one of my heroes, Kelly Wilson, said, find a job you can make the greatest impact on the most people's lives and run with it. And so I've led with that as a value and kind of way I've oriented myself to how I want to be as a person and how I want to treat others. And so, I was a clinician from 2008 to 13 or 14. Then I became a professor, taught at WashU in St. Louis for a good bit, and then switched gears to come out to Phoenix, Arizona, Tempe, the ASU campus, and I started the MSABA program. I was director of the MSABA program in the Department of Psychology.
It's amazing.
So in 2015, we launched that program, and this will be its 10th year. Had a really fortunate opportunity put before me by the leaders at ASU. And while I'm full-time at Hope Bridge, I stay in touch through the program, through a advanced learning methodology and language class that I teach in the fall. And it's really refreshing because it's a break from some of the day-to-day grind, but it also keeps me really super sharp around the science and practice and integration of what that looks like for our field. So it's really been a really good experience.
So Adam, if I went to ratemyprofessor.com, what do you think some of your students would rate you? And how many Fs do you give out?
Well, I do want to say we have heard great things already in the conference in regards to you being a professor. The students that you may be currently working with they spoke extremely highly of you. Shout out to that. But yeah, so what would you say, huh?
I think, and I hope it would be hard but fair.
Yeah.
Hard but fair. My background through Kelly Wilson and Dr. Mark Dixon was my mentor in Carbondale, Illinois, before he moved up to UIC. And his classes were really hard, but it really kind of forced you to know your stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I hope for in my students. We have, we talked a little bit earlier about the data in the field. About 2/3 are within the first 5 years of practice. Yeah. What that tells me is there's a lot of opportunity for continued growth. and that we really plant the seed of kind of that pursuit of excellence in grad training. While some may not like how much I push individuals in classrooms to be excellent, I'm not interested particularly in mediocrity. I'm interested in excellence. And
I love that.
That's what our field
that.
requires and what we owe it to families.
So Adam, I passed my BCBA exam.
Yep.
I just got hired at Hope Bridge.
Yep.
What is my first 3-month experience going to be like?
So the lovely Meg Moore, who also I get to work with, created what's called the Bridge program.
Love it.
And the Bridge program is the post BCBA. So you got that credential. Now your first year, you're going to have mentorship and a trajectory of experiences that further round out what it means to be a BCBA at Hope Bridge. In addition to the required trainings, you get these wraparound services, these wraparound experiences through workshops, through presentations, through flat content, et cetera, that only raise all the, the acumen and behavior analysis. And she did a beautiful job of building that program out too.
Okay, great question. Now I'm an RBT who just passed my certification. What does my first 6 months to a year look like?
Yeah, you're doing a ton of shadowing and through a BST model. We use BST, behavioral skills training, to kind of give an opportunity for newly minted RBTs a way to both see what it looks like to practice ABA, but then bring that into the fold through not only it being modeled, but practice and getting feedback, and both good and bad criticisms and things you need to kind of tighten up. But that only, steel sharpens steel.
Right.
So we're interested in those RBTs kind of growing into their roles, but also, developing and taking pride in the work that they get to do with families who are impacted by autism. So,
hi guys, you listen to Beyond the Science. We're here live at the Arizona ABA conference with Adam Hahs. Adam, I've known you for a little bit now here, and I kind of got a good sense for what you're about. You've seen a lot. You've been around a lot. I just want to ask for you, what's next in terms of research or clinical initiatives? How do you envision our field moving along from where we're at, and where would you like to see it go?
Yeah, I think a couple things that are really hot or top of mind. Obviously, assent-based care. That's really ripe right now. The other big piece that I think is it's a win, not an if, is the integration of AI.
Yes.
We're making some pretty concerted efforts at Hope Bridge and with a number of other colleagues and leaders. I know you talked to Tim Yeager earlier. We've been really kind of in a think tank of how are we going to, with high quality, integrate AI that protects the field from it being inundated by AI in ways that are supervised. So in AI, we would call that supervised machine learning. And I think that there are lots of tools, both on revenue cycle management side, but also clinical quality side, that we can lean into without abandoning the idiosyncrasies and the individuality of our science, by saying AI can do a lot of things for us. But again, we are incumbent to individualize our treatments and not to have AI write it for us. So there's lots of different angles and points of entry for AI into our field. What I would encourage us all to consider are the degrees to which we have almost an ethics arm dedicated to AI integration, as I think that will continue to be a big topic about, hey, write me a program, ChatGPT 4.0, write me a program that targets differential reinforcement for a kid who's 5 and impacted by autism. It can do that.
It can do it.
The challenge is bad data in, bad data out. And so if I've got AI integrating data that's poor on the front end, the likelihood that it's going to crank out the right programming is small. So that's where the clinician doesn't lose a job. I think there's this fear that we're replaceable. And I would say this makes us even more dynamic.
Yes, I love that.
What is the collaboration like on a bigger stage.
Yeah.
So as far as ABA companies, like are the Hope Bridge to the Blue Springs to the companies that we're working with, Excellence Noir, like is there collaboration amongst companies or is there pushback?
It's always healthy kind of banter and being healthily competitive.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Tim and I have known each other for probably, almost 10 years. And his training is so rich from Columbia. We're from different kind of spaces in ABA, and neither is wrong. We can all play nice in the sandbox, but we share ideas. There's a lot of idea sharing. Intellectual property, yes, is real, but we do bounce ideas off of one another. Again, we have to be mindful of laws and regulations around what is shared.
Right.
But for the most part, in terms of research endeavors, in terms of like how to think more systemically about organizational behavior management, those things are fair game. We do take time on a regular basis to kind of get under the hood and see what's working, what's not, and how all boats rise when we celebrate and collaborate. So.
First thing, I'm 0 for 1 on this panel.
Okay.
College football.
Yep.
So November 9th.
Yes.
I need you to give me a prediction. And then second thing I want you to speak to is the need for continuum of care.
Yep.
What happens to that kid that's 10 or 11 and now graduates out of a clinic?
Yeah.
What happens to that kid until 21?
Jackson Dart, our quarterback, is a beast.
Yeah.
I think he goes big. I think it's going to be like 42-35 Ole Miss.
Ooh.
Yeah. What do you think? I know. That was not a great showing. Our O-line could not stand the heat. So, what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah. What's your prediction?
I think after we lost to Alabama,
Great game.
I think October 19th when we play Texas, that's going to be a big game. That's a big game. And I think we're going to go undefeated all the way out.
All right.
So your second question was about continuity of care. It's one of those things that honestly keeps me up at night.
Yes.
We talked earlier about kind of this inverse relation between age and access to quality services. And I think idealistically there would be this understanding and kind of gentleman's handshake about when I move from this service where they have age caps, there's an opportunity right behind that so that there isn't a drop in services.
Yes.
So that the experts in those age groups can turn on, and that family doesn't lose a bit of service, because we know that breaks in continuity of care is super detrimental to the overall gains that have been made as well as future progress. So it's super critical for us to make sure that happens. Yeah.
We really appreciate you taking time. I know you're a busy man presenting. I know you're here, so I know you've got family. I need to get you have family time or something. So really appreciate you taking time. For our listeners, thank you for tuning in with us on our live with Adam. Stay tuned. We'll have some more things coming up for you guys. And until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Thanks.